like to call the January 3rd, 2017 Davie County Commissioners meeting to order. Got a good number here tonight. I'd like to wish everyone a Happy New Year. Appreciate you being here this evening. At this time, if you would join me in the invocation. Dear God, as we come before you this evening, we're thankful for the many blessings of life. We look forward to a new year in 17 for the many opportunities and challenges that it will present. As always, we ask for your wisdom and guidance in this meeting. In your name, amen.
Amen.
You will stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Next item is to adopt the agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Next we move to public comment. Mr. Vogler.
And Mr. Chairman, members of the board, no one has signed up for public comments tonight, so we have none.
Okay. All right. At this time, we'll move to presentations, and I would ask Sheriff Stokes to come forward. Sheriff Stokes, as you all know, is retiring, and we wish him well in retirement. And we have with him, for him, a flag of Davie County, and also a flag that was flown over the courthouse across the way here on December the 4th, which would have been the 16th, which would have been the 10th anniversary of his inauguration. So we can't say how much we appreciate what you have done for the county. A career retirement, well observed, great career, and we just wish you all the best in retirement. But again, we have the flag of the Davie County that was flown, and commemorating what I just said, your 10th, well, your career, but also your flown the 10th anniversary. And here is the flag, and so suitable for framing already.
What an honor, and I certainly appreciate it. Nothing can be more gratifying than to be recognized by the people you work for, and I certainly appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's an honor and a privilege to work with this champion. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sure some of the other gentlemen may have some words they'd like to share.
Sheriff, you know how I feel. I've said many times, you're the epitome of a working sheriff, and I know that's what you wanted to be for the people of Davie County, and you succeeded in mighty ways, and we thank you for it.
Sheriff, we're blessed to have had you here, and that you will stay here, and know that Jewel's glad to have you back with her more time, but you've been a symbol of integrity and hard work in this community, and we really appreciate your service so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I would also like to add to that, you have done an excellent job, and you were the last person to pull a blue light on me.
Sheriff, I'd just like to say thank you for all that you've done. You are a true example of a public servant.
Thank you very much. Just appreciate it all.
If I may, I'd just like to say, managers and sheriffs don't always get along. But this manager and this sheriff got along splendidly. And I think the thing I could say most about Andy, that I think is the best thing I could say about anyone, is when the door is shut and you're in the room alone, he's the same man there he is out here. And that to me is as fine a compliment as you can pay to anyone. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. It's an honor.
presentation we have is Senior Services Report. Kim, are you presenting that?
Bill Lamb's here.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to just briefly, for the benefit of those here, introduce Bill as he makes his way forward. But Bill retired after well, he's retired twice, actually. The first time was after a 15-year career as the Associate Director of Public Service for the UNC Institute on Aging. Prior to that, he concluded a 30-year career with the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, retiring as Chief of Planning for the North Carolina Division of Aging. We asked Bill to come to Davie County to help us evaluate senior services. We have been planning and thinking about our existing footprint at the Bobby Knight Senior Center, and wanted to have him help us evaluate that along with the services that we provide, and we didn't think we could find anyone better than Bill, who was as knowledgeable of the service delivery system for the aging population in North Carolina. So we've asked Bill to come tonight to maybe share some of his observations and recommendations with us. Welcome.
All right, I'm happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. As was that first retirement, by the way, lasted 2 days. It was Saturday and Sunday. I was back at work the following Monday, but I've done a better job on this retirement. I was asked to come to work with Davie County around their senior services program, and the first thing I really want to say is that as the citizens of this county should really be proud of the program that operates here. Kim has a Senior Center of Excellence. That's a certification that is made by the state, and that's not an easy thing to achieve. So I think you all should be proud of that program and the services that they provide. When I first came here, which was last year, I issued a report in January that was really the results of looking at program information locally, but we also held a public meeting where we got input from citizens about the services that are available in the county and the services that folks wanted in the future. But I was asked to come today, particularly in the context of what's operating through Davie County Senior Services and the constraints that are present frankly, because of the physical space availability. So I'm going to try and focus my remarks on some of those issues, because I know you're also considering a capital development plan, and this is kind of backdrop for that. In the overall assessment, the services that are most appreciated but also were expressed by the public in terms of wanting to have additional support or additional expansion were nutrition services, and that would be congregate and home delivered meals, physical fitness programs, and then third, the family caregiver respite program. This is a program that provides assistance to people who are caring for an older person in their home. In terms of the current operation, which you see when you look at a trend of people they serve and the units of service, you see gradual increases over the last several years. Now that shouldn't be a surprise, because when you also look at the demographics, Davie County is not different than most counties in North Carolina. The older adult population is increasing at a faster rate than the general population. In just the next 20-year period, the rate of growth in general population for Davie County is supposed to be 12%. The rate of growth for people over the age of 60 is 41%. So you're looking at a fourfold increase just in terms of the rate of growth between those two populations. By 2035, think about this now, by 2035, about a third of your population is going to be over the age of 60. Davie County is going to look like Florida, and we need to anticipate that. While just the aging of the population is not really a marker for expressed demands we do know two things. That we know that the baby boomers, people in my age group, I'm 68, as we come into aging, we're healthier, and we want to engage in more physical health activities. We want to be able to engage in activities that are related to health promotion, socialization, those kinds of things. The oldest of the old population, persons over 85, we know are going to be having higher increases in physical disability, and there's going to have more demand for physical health type services. So services like the Family Caregiver Support Program. The dilemma you've got is that in terms of the existing space that's available, they're maxed out in terms of just office space. In fact, they've converted closets into office space. So any increase in terms of programming is going to require either, they don't have places to put staff, or it's going to put limits on what can be done in the building. And I've got several points in terms of the problems that they're seeing right now. In the nutrition program, as an example, they essentially take their main activity room and divide it in half for their congregate nutrition site. The demand for that program has gone up to the point that on Wednesdays, they have to expand into the other half of that activity center, which means they have to shut down their activity programs. And on certain days, they have to make those decisions on the fly. The other problem that they have in terms of space relates to the general senior center activities. While those have been increasing over the last several years, there's a limit in terms of what they've been able to do, and in fact, some of the programs that they've had to conduct, they've had to now move off-site, find another place to deliver those programs. The Kim and Davie Senior Services just got the Senior Games program this last year. And that brings in a whole new set of older adults who are interested in participating in a competitive sports activity. And that has increased participation with not just those folks, but with other folks as well. But for those activities, for those kinds of people, it also requires physical equipment and larger space in order to be able to accommodate them. They don't have it there, so they're having to go off-site to be able to accommodate the needs of those people in terms of participation in senior games. Now, one of the things that is an important concept to remember is that with a senior center, we need to be thinking about it as a focal point for aging services, so that people who come to the senior center not just get the activities that they're coming for, but they have access to a variety of different activities. So what happens when Kim has to work out things, so she has to work with outside organizations and outside having activities away from the senior center, they're not really getting the benefit of the whole concept of a focal point. The fitness classes have been growing over the years, but again now coming back to the space arrangements, there are certain kinds of equipment that would be good to have in a senior center that they just don't have. It's not physical fitness, but it is a recreational activity. Things like pool tables, billiards, ping pong. Those are the kinds of things that are commonly seen in senior centers across the state. She doesn't have the room to put those kinds of that kind of equipment into their building. I've already made this point, but just let me summarize it again. With all of the activities that they've got going on, when you look at other senior centers in the state, they often set aside office space for other agencies or other organizations. Social Security, as an example, is often found in an office in a senior center. Tax aid, when it comes down to tax time, will be able to set up and operate in a senior center. The departments of social services often put an eligibility specialist, Medicaid person, in a senior center. That can't happen in terms of the existing space arrangements that we've got. So the context of this presentation is when I talked earlier, there were a number of services that were appreciated by the citizens in Davie County. We can expect an increase in demand for those services. But in terms of the physical plant that's there right now, there's no place to put them. So the options are fairly limited. Either one, you're not going to be able to expand, which is kind of going on with the home delivered meal program and the congregate nutrition program. You reach a point where you can't expand any further, or you're going to have to try and figure out a way to take it off-site and then lose the benefit of the single portal or the focal point on aging. I think those are the main take-home points that I was wanting to make tonight. I'd be glad to try and answer any of your questions. I think Kim is also here, and she has more specific information about the program. But let me end with where I started. Despite what I've said, what you have is an excellent program. The staff that I've been involved with are dedicated. The people that I talk to about the program are very positive about the impact that it has on their lives, and you should be proud of this program. So, thank you.
So we thought this would be a good introduction for you as you are meeting on the 19th, beginning to look at capital planning. We thought some of Bill's observations would be helpful. We do have some recommendations in both the first 5 years and the second 5 years for our capital plan for the senior center. Right now, their really most pressing need, the one I hear most often from Kim, concerns storage.
Right.
As Bill has said, they have limited office space, and they obviously have limited functional space for activities and expanded activities. And so we're going to have to build for that. But obviously, we've got some recommendations for both, and we just thought it would be good to have Bill here. If you have any questions, he's a great resource to ask. If any observations you'd like for him to make other than what he's made.
Anybody have any questions?
Well, I thank you for the opportunity to come.
Thank you.
Well, I do have one question,
Sure,
but typically when these needs have been identified, what's a reasonable time frame to implement them? Is it 2 years, 4 years?
Well, in terms of a capital development plan, it needs to fit in the context of whatever development plan you've got, and that's always a multi-year proposition. So you are talking about a horizon of at least 2 to 5 years, but maybe longer.
Bill, how often do you see community financial participation in senior centers, grants, outside grants in senior centers? Is that more frequent or less frequent? That's not something we've explored, but I think it's something we need to talk about.
Generally, the concept of a senior center in terms of funding is a local responsibility. And I say that in that there are state and federal funds available to support the kinds of services that I was just talking about. The state and federal organizations tend not to fund capital. So the actual physical plant itself, it tends to be a local responsibility. Now, there are public interests and private interests, and they go down different paths, but it can be a combination of local appropriations but also there are development, the private nonprofit senior center operations raise their funds privately. So, those kinds of activities are possible as well, to get public donors to support it. And by public donors, I'm also talking about other organizations that might have an interest in a senior center. For example, and we haven't talked about it a lot, but hospitals have a stake in health and wellness programs, and so often would be interested in a footprint in a senior center. And so you may be able to draw a relationship to say, we don't have a place to put you, but we do have a need for a capital development plan related to a senior. Can you participate? So there are those kinds of partnerships that you can be thinking about in terms of building a senior center. The other option, and I say this advisedly, but we've got senior centers in the state that are named after some of our state legislators. And when it comes to special needs funds, senior centers have benefited from that. So, but that's another matter.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, next we have the 2017 property reevaluation report presentation. Mr. Myers.
This is the beginning, well, it's not really the beginning of a journey for Brian, but this is the beginning of a public journey that our county will be going through for the next several months with the revaluation process. The first obvious example is going to be notices going out to property owners. So we've asked Brian to come tonight just to briefly sort of chart what's going to be happening over the next several months and where he sees things headed. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. 2017 property revaluation. Revaluation is an in-depth process of reappraising all real property in the county at its current market value. The revaluation process included the use of maps, aerial photography, street-level images, sales analysis, and field visits to determine the market value. Davie County appraisers reviewed and analyzed all the data to determine the values. Revaluation is not only mandated by North Carolina general statute, but is necessary to maintain equitable and uniform property values among property owners throughout the county. The purpose of a revaluation is not to raise or lower the assessment or tax base of a county. The main purpose of a revaluation is to establish fairness and equity among all property owners and all property types. Market value is the basic definition of it, the most probable price which property should bring in a competitive and open market under all conditions to a fair sale. The buyer and seller each acting prudently and knowledgeably and assuming the price is not affected by undue stimulus. Examples of a qualified sale: buyer and the seller are both typically motivated. Both parties are well informed and well advised and acting in their best interest. A reasonable time is allowed for exposure in the open market. Payment is made in terms of cash or in terms of financial arrangements comparable thereto, and the price represents the normal consideration for the property sold, unaffected by special or creative financing or sale concessions granted to anyone associated with the sale. It also recognizes the property's current and potential use. Why does a county have a property revaluation? State law requires North Carolina to revalue properties at least once every 8 years. That's North Carolina General Statute 105-286. And it also provides equity within the tax base. What type of property is revalued? Vacant and improved residential, commercial, and industrial properties. This does not include personal property such as motor vehicles, boats, and mobile homes. These are valued on an annual basis. And currently, Davie County is divided into 66 appraisal neighborhoods. Each revaluation, the staff looks at how the county is broken down into neighborhoods. And so in some instances, we've got to break them down even further due to patterns and sales stimulus that we see to provide equity in that neighborhood. Because some counties, when I first began with the county in 2008, we had very large neighborhoods in some of the revaluation neighborhoods. So in some cases, we have had to go in and break those neighborhoods down due to the certain growth and types of dwellings being built in those. It's not that it will have a negative impact on other areas in that neighborhood. The total parcels in Davie County, this is including exempt parcels, are 24,291. The total taxable parcels are 23,687. Qualified sales as of 12/19/2016, the county had 406 vacant sales, 1,749 improved sales. Cooley had 2 vacant sales and 36 improved sales. Moxville had 26 vacant sales and 288 improved sales, and Bermuda Run had 25 vacant sales and 367 improved sales. One thing that is very encouraging, we had a whole lot more data to deal with this revaluation compared to the revaluation in 2013. And so that was a great, that's showing that we're moving in the right direction. Currently, right now, county value breakdown as of December 19th, 2016. Currently, what we're showing is due to areas in the county that are still experiencing some decline, property values have went down 0.39%, so not quite a 0.5%. Cooley went down 2.80%, Moxville went up 0.36%, and Bermuda Run went up 0.71%. So what does that information mean? Parcels will not change uniformly within the county. So in that statement, you know, it's saying this, not every property is going to go down that 0.38%. Some properties in some areas of the county have went up, while other areas of the county have went down. So that's not a uniform number to use when, you know, thinking, you know, if I'm a property owner and I see this, you know, the first instance is people are going to think, well, everybody's property value went down 0.38%. That is not the case. Some areas have experienced growth, and some areas are still experiencing that decline. So assessed values, anytime you do reevaluation, 1 can increase, 2 they can decrease, or some may remain the same. I wanted to go into the appeal process a little bit. The valid reasons to appeal: the market value substantially exceeds the actual market value of the property. The market value is inconsistent with the market value of similar type properties within the same neighborhood. The property information on the tax card is incorrect. Invalid reasons to appeal: the market value increased too much. The market value is more than the insurance value, and no one will buy it for this amount. And the reason why I put those on there, a lot of times every year when we get appeals in, we see these things, and especially in a revaluation when everybody gets a notice, we see some of these bottom reasons why they appealed. And if someone sends us a appeal form back and has no information on it, there's not much information for us to go off of to make change. So the more information that the taxpayer puts on that appeal form, it's great, because we can go in and investigate those things to see if the proper adjustments have been made or if an adjustment is needed. How does a taxpayer appeal? The informal appeal process will begin as soon as notices get mailed to the taxpayer.
When is that, Brian?
It's on my next slide, but the notices are going to go out the very working last day of January. So a taxpayer may appeal in the tax office or by completing the form and mailing it to the tax office. They can also appeal by email with an appeal form attached. And for the first time, we're going to offer an online appeal form. So what that online appeal form is going to look like, the notice they received in the mail, and they will have to fill out that appeal form before they submit it, because they won't let them submit it if it's not filled out completely. And then once they submit it, they will receive a confirmation email from the tax office saying we have received the appeal. Summary: reevaluations notice will be mailed out at the end of January once all splits and plats have been worked and valued. There will be instructions provided with the notice to inform the taxpayers how to appeal and contact information for the county revaluation office. Any questions?
So Brian, just to be sure, once those notices go out, and I know I've heard this hundreds of times over my career, a taxpayer will come to you and say, I'll sell it to you for what you got it valued for. I think that's sort of a common comment that you get. But in truth, and once they sit down in the formal appeal, they need to bring some evidence with them that supports their claim that the value is not correct. And that could be in the form of an appraisal, sales in their neighborhood, et cetera. But you need to have evidence in order to make either an informal or formal adjustment. Is that correct?
Correct. And I'm gonna say this, that's a great comment. A lot of times people, have refinanced their home in the past year, and they will bring that appraisal in. And one thing that we've got to look at on that appraisal is this: what properties are they being compared to? Because what we have to look at for our basis of value is those properties within that neighborhood that they're being compared to. And in some cases, we've even found out that we've explained to the taxpayer there's adjustments that can be made on those private fee appraisals that we can't make, such as for outbuildings being an over improvement for a neighborhood. We've got to value what's on the property. But we will look at every bit of the information that a taxpayer gives us to review, and we will make any changes that need to be made if we have a correction to make on the tax card, and we will look at how that property is being valued on that appraisal to make sure that the county's value is lining up equivalent to what they brought in for us to review.
So out of the roughly 24,000 notices that will go out, how many informal appeals would you anticipate?
Informal appeals, we typically have around 5%. In speaking with Mr. Ruffin, one thing that I anticipate is, I expect, just like last revaluation, that some people will come in and say, hey, this is too low. So we're going to correct that. It may be that they finished a basement that we don't have, and items like that. So it's going to be a broad spectrum of appeals that may come in that we'll have to address on an individual basis.
If you're not satisfied in the informal appeal, then they can formally appeal to the Board of Equalization and Review that
Correct.
meets in April.
The Board of Equalization Review will meet the first Tuesday following the first Monday in April. It will go into session, and they will start hearing appeals that night of anyone that, through the informal process, that the staff cannot make that adjustment.
And then at budget time, the commissioners then have to adopt a tax rate, obviously, that reflects the results of the revaluation. But one of the things that the board has to do by law, whether or not you adopt a revenue neutral rate, you have to tell the public and publish what the revenue neutral rate would be. That is, with the new value, does the tax rate go up to garner the same amount of money, or would the tax rate have to go down? Hopefully, we're hoping the tax rate obviously would be able to move down to garner the same amount of money. Either way, you're not compelled to adopt that tax rate, but you are compelled to notify the public what that revenue rate, neutral rate would be.
Correct.
And so sometime early in the process, Brian will be able to tell you, based on the valuation, what that revenue rate, neutral rate would be, but that may change as the appellate process proceeds and values change as a result of that.
Correct.
Okay, so this all begins in a very public way at the end of January.
Yes, sir. And we will be providing instructions for the taxpayers that we insert in with the notice of value, with contact information for our office. So if a taxpayer does have any questions, it's going to be very clear on what of contact information for us and how they do go about the appeal process.
So if a taxpayer gets their notice in the mail and calls Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Jones obviously knows commissioners have nothing to do with the valuation process. That's obviously set up that way by statute so that it's not a political process, but rather a professional, practical process. He would direct them, suggest that they call your office.
Yes, sir.
And I know that would be in the notice, but sometimes people like to call the commissioners and let them know how they feel about those values, and I'm sure they'll hear some of that. But important for them to know that the actual process needs to start with your office by filing that informal appeal.
Yes, sir. And the informal process has been very successful in our county. Our appraisers do a very good job of reaching out to the taxpayers when needed to do so, to answer those questions that may arise through the appeal process. So, and everyone, once they appeal, they will receive another notice in the mail stating whether the value has stayed the same or changed.
Brian, when do you anticipate the revenue, notifying us of the revenue neutral rate? I mean, we're heading into budget process.
We're heading to the budget process. You know, once all the splits and the plats get worked, you know, I will definitely be diving into that because, you know, typically a lot comes in at the end of December. And looking at the registered deeds last week, it was, you know, it was busy the last day of the month, so they have that to that point to appeal, that point to get those documents registered, and then those documents come to the tax office. So once we get through those documents, I'm anticipating probably beginning of February to the end of February. So that month of February, I'm really going to be diving in to see what that rate will be.
Sometime in the month of February.
Yes.
Brian, I had one question just for personal curiosity. You said 5% usually is around 5% is the number that files an informal or
Yes, sir.
informal review. How many of those generally are you unable to satisfy and end up with the Board of E&R?
Last revaluation, we had 7 go to the Board of Equalization and Review.
That's very good.
7 that actually came and showed up to be heard. But a very unique situation last revaluation too, because the majority of the property values went down. So, you know, I typically aim for less than 1% that actually come to be heard before the Board of Equalization and Review.
So you hope to satisfy 80 or greater percent of those?
Normally, communication takes care of a lot of the appeals. Just explaining to the taxpayer how the value was originated and explaining the process and explaining what the tax office did to complete the task of the revaluation. And actually, if they come in the office, we're going to visually show them on the tax map what we've been looking at. So
Brian, the Board of E&R
Yes, sir.
Equalization and Review, that's a citizen board, right? I mean, that's composed of citizens from different walks of life, is that correct?
that is correct. So the Board of Equalization is a board that is appointed by the county commissioners, and it is made up of citizens within the county, throughout the county, so from all walks of life. So it is a citizen board.
How many are on the board?
There's 5. Typically 5 with 2 alternates.
We know the reval process is a long and laborious process, and I see one of your co-workers back there, so appreciate all the time and effort that you put into it, and we'll look forward to getting those numbers here in the next 30 days or so.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Well, we've celebrated the retirement of a sheriff this evening, so now we're going to celebrate the appointment of a sheriff. So, Mike, you want to talk about the process of
Happy
the
to.
statute that we go through here to?
Actually, it
format?
varies in North Carolina. So in Davie County, the process is with when the term of an existing sheriff is open, because in this case, the retirement of Sheriff Stokes, the Davie County Republican Party must then meet and recommend to the Board of Commissioners a candidate to consider to replace Sheriff Stokes and fill his unexpired term. Now, by law, the Board of Commissioners cannot deny that recommendation. It comes forward to the board and has to be formally approved according to law. And so the Davie County Republican Party has recommended the vacancy be filled by the department's Chief Deputy, J.D. Hartman, and he would, once approved by the board, would then, of course, be sworn in tomorrow and would then fill the unexpired term of Sheriff Stokes. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll let you take the action that you must take in order for the process to move forward.
And at the Davie County Republican Party, the recommendation or the nomination and the vote was unanimous for Mr. Hartman. So I think you've got the right man to fill some big shoes. So with that, entertain a motion to approve Mr. Hartman.
Mr. Chairman, I make that motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of appointing J.D. Hartman as the sheriff for Davie County, raise your hand. Okay, that is unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. J.D. Would you like to, Mr. Hartman? Sheriff Hartman?
I'd just like to say thank you, gentlemen, and thank you for the vote of confidence. I hope that I can continue to provide the level of services and increase those level of services as time changes and the needs change for the citizens of Davie County. And just say, my door's open. If any citizen needs anything, please come and see me. Thank you all again.
Thank you. And I think Mr. Ruffin mentioned it, but Mr. Hartman will be, or Sheriff Hartman will be sworn in the morning at 9 o'clock. And then, and I forgot to mention this, Sheriff Stokes' retirement party will be at 10 o'clock from 10 to 12. Drop in, come by and say hello if you can from 10 to 12, and that's at the Energy United building. So come on by if you can. All right. Next, we move to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I would request that one item be removed from the consent agenda. That would be item G, contract to purchase.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I second.
All right. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I would say this, the intention then is to, there have been some issues that have come up that we need to address. So I think the intention, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is that we come back at our meeting in February and address this issue. We're not looking at necessarily a long term.
Yeah, I think that's correct, and I did not accurately express that or completely express that. I think to remove it from the consent agenda and to hold it open until our next meeting, just because questions have been raised. I think it's an excellent opportunity for the county, but we just need to make sure we fully understand and answer the questions that have been asked before we proceed. But I think it's an excellent chance for the county to move forward.
I agree, it's an excellent opportunity for the county. I just would ask Mr. Vogler, was there any legal issues as far as the contract when we have to close? Should we vote to do so?
No.
Okay.
You've got up to, I think it's up to 90 days, I believe, under the contract.
Well, I have a question about what are we gonna find out we hadn't already found out? All I've seen is 3 emails from 3 people. And that don't tell me that we hadn't done what we're supposed to do.
Well, I don't think anybody's saying we haven't done what we're supposed to do. It's just when questions get raised, and in my view at least, some legitimate questions have been raised that I need answers to that I don't have answers to. I'd like to get the answers before we enter into a contract. And I think the easiest way to do that is on the front side rather than trying to figure it out on the back side.
And I specifically would bring up one issue, the issue of the initial investment that the county had in the project. Now, the equity that's built into that property, I think we'll iron that out. But I think we need to at least address that. I mean, that's a $200,000 investment that taxpayers had in that property initially, and I think we owe the citizens that have brought these questions up the time to at least reflect on them and make sure that there's nothing else we need to address. And so I can wait 30 days. I'm okay with that.
I personally thought that we discussed all this when we had the closed session to talk about it. And I know we didn't talk about what equity we had in it, and personally, I don't consider that equity. That was 10 years ago, and I don't know where they got the rest of the money from. The county evidently made them a $200,000 donation back then, but maybe Moxville made them a donation, maybe, town of Cooley and Bermuda Run made them a donation. I don't know where the equity came from.
We clearly did not discuss that initially, and so I just think that there's some level of discussion that could take place over 30 days. It does not affect the closing and wouldn't necessarily impact what we've discussed with them. But I just think we need to address some of these issues.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion and a second. All in favor of postponing or deleting item G1, the offer to purchase the property owned by the Humane Society of Davie County, to the February meeting, raise your hand. 4 opposed, 1. Okay. All right. So that is removed from the consent agenda. Are there any other issues on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion, second. All in favor or any discussion, raise your hand. Okay, that is approved. All right, county manager's report. Mr. Ruffin.
All right, well, this will be brief. This is also my last one, forever. I think, at least that's my plan. I do want to say, though, everywhere I've ever worked, my goal has been to make it a better place than it was when I got there. And it is, but it is because I think we have a great staff here who remains and will continue to provide the leadership to move the county forward. I am amazed in 3 years at how much has been done here across the organization in every department, and it's really a credit to the people who were here when I got here. I really mean that, and you have a great staff, and I've said that several times to you, but I couldn't mean it more. I've worked in, I have to think about it, 6 or 7 different jurisdictions, and we're lean here, which is typical for a small county. You don't have staff like we had in Durham County when I was there. We have a lean staff, but we have a very good staff, and there are people who really care about what they do and how they do it. And I think that reflects, at least in what I've seen in the last 3 years. Next Tuesday, John Eller will start as your manager, and I will be his helper and his aide. I will be moving out of my office this week, readying. John Gallimore and others are going to be getting John's office and what he needs ready. He comes on Tuesday. I understand he's got a very full schedule for several weeks. I plan to be here as long as I need to be, but probably no longer than the end of January. My job for John is going to be to, I just don't want something to come up that I should have told him and didn't. And so we're going to have scheduled with staff, with lots of staff, a number of different briefings for him to help ready him for transitional issues that will come up. I do want to say this about John. You have a very good man. And I told him this, and I really mean this. This is not I'm not one to pass compliments along that I don't mean. I think he plans to stay here. He's not coming here looking for another job. He's coming here to live here, to worship here, to play here. His family is very, very excited. He took a pay cut to come here, and that's something that you may not realize, but I think that says a lot about how much this county means to him and what he believes of this particular opportunity. And I told him, and I really believe this, I believe in time he's going to be the best county manager Davie County ever had. And I say that not from me, but from the likes of people like John Barber, who I met in the early 80s and reached out to me, who was a very fine county manager here. And Davie County's had some very good managers, and I think John is going to be, if not the best, one of the best that we've had. He's got a heart. I believe you can manage with heart, and I believe you'll see that in him. He cares, and he's going to show that, I believe, in the way he manages. He's a real people person. He's very citizen friendly and sensitive. I just commend you for your choice. I really do believe you've selected a very fine person to be your manager, and I look forward, at least in the few days that I have to spend with him. He has kept us very busy over the last 3 weeks with, and I know he's even sent you, I think, some questions, but even today I'm still answering his questions, and which I think speaks volumes about him, and we have overwhelmed him with a lot of information. He will be here tomorrow. He's coming for our department directors meeting, and he also wanted to attend Sheriff Stokes' retirement and JD's swearing in, which I think gets him off to a good start tomorrow. So thank you all for your support. You've been a great board to work with. I was talking to a former deputy county manager of mine from Durham County this morning, and I told her, and I mean this, my last job was the best job I ever had. This was a really great place to work, and you can take a lot of pride in what's been done, at least the 3 years that I've been here, because you've been a big part of that. I told you today, I've never worked for a board that just let the manager manage. That never happens. I mean, almost at some time, some commissioner's going to get involved intensely in a management issue. That has never happened here. Never. Never had any of these guys come to me and complain about a personnel decision I made. They have truly let the manager manage. And the other thing I like about them is they only want to meet once a month, and if it gets past 8 o'clock, they're ready to go home. And I like that because they like to do their business. And I will tell all of you this, when they come to the meeting, they come prepared. All of them come prepared for the meeting. I haven't found them to come and they haven't read and studied on an issue. And even in the last day, I think I've talked to 4 of them about animal control and animal shelter emails. So they pay attention to their emails. But I appreciate your support. I've just so much enjoyed working with you and wish you the best. And look forward to hearing great things about you and about the work that John Eller will be doing. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Well, I feel like we've said goodbye to Mike about 8 times now, but I guess this is it, and so we appreciate all you've done for the county. I think your time here has been extremely productive, and I think we got a stronger organization from your efforts, and we can't say thank you enough, but hope you won't be a stranger, and we appreciate you being able to stick around and help John Eller, and we hope he can be all that we believe he can be. So we'll look forward to getting him here next Tuesday. All right, with that, next item is old business. All right, new business. All right, seeing none of those, we do have a closed session on the agenda this evening, so I would entertain a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318.11, 3, 5, and 6. So anyone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay, we are in closed session. We will be back and open as soon as we conclude our business. Thank you for being here. The first one is Wallace Farms. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve or deny that?
Make a motion to deny.
Motion to deny. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to deny the exemption for Wallace Farms, raise your hand. 5-0. Next item, the untimely property tax relief application for Kenneth Gant. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve or deny that?
I think in order to be consistent, we need to deny that as well.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion to deny Mr. Gant's application. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. That's 5-0. Next, we go to Commissioner comments. Glad we're here. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you, staff.
Motion and a second. Dan made the, didn't I hear you make that?
I'll second that, too.
Mark seconded that. All in
Somewhere
favor?
there.
I think everybody-
5-0. Sorry for the long meeting.